Hello, it is episode 6 of The World According to Ali, and it's a special one because it's Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day 2016, and I thought, you know what, rather than just having questions about anything, cheated a bit and said, right, questions need to be about lovey-dovey stuff. But I cheated even more by putting one question of my own in there, because I wanted to answer this question because this is, I feel, an important question, something I've wanted to talk about. So question 1 is my one, okay, and what is the difference between love and being in love? Which I think a lot of people use interchangeably, and I think that's incorrect. I think love fits in with all the usual stuff, you know, love, fear, hate, you know, all the emotions, yeah, and you can feel those, you know, as they come and go, yeah. Different situations, different people, different things will bring out an emotional, you know, feel in you. So what is being in love then, compared to just love, right? And for me, that's what you're defining is the state of being, okay? So what state are you? You know, what are you actually in emotionally, generally, all the time? So as a state, for example, you can be in fear. You know, you can be in fear all the time. You can be in misery. You can be in hate. You know, you can be wrapped up in this stuff all day long, and you'll still feel the normal range, the normal spectrum of emotions. So in your state, whatever state it is that you're in, you'll feel the full spectrum of emotions, but what will be magnified will be what your state is in. So if you're in love as a state of being, that will magnify feelings of love that you have, and I think the other emotions then get downplayed. So all this perspective is my own personal experience, you know, because I've come from a place where I was in hate, I was in misery, you know, and I still felt love, you know, I still felt like a full range of emotions, but the emotions that are the ones that grabbed me, you know, the ones that took control, lined up with what my state of being was. So when I was in this state of in misery, you know, in hate or whatever, whenever something came along that sparked off the emotion that, you know, lined up with that state, it was like a bushfire, you know. Things would like annoy me, but you know, when I'm like, I was in misery, so things would make me sad for days on end, you know, because I was in hate. Something that would spark me off, I'd be off. I wanted to fight, I wanted to rah, you know, and it was, you know, it's one of those things when you're in that situation, you kind of just think that's the way you are. And for ages, I thought hate was my primary emotion. You know, I was like, yeah, you know, it's motivated me to get where I am with my gym and my business and all that sort of stuff. But you know what? It was just the state I was in. It was just the state of being. And more recently, and a lot of people have noticed this, I've completely changed. And my state of being has gone from that negative one to being one of being in love, right? Which, you know, you can take that for what it is, you know, think soppy prat or whatever, yeah. But now, because my state of being has changed to being in love, when I feel love, it's magnified. And the other emotions aren't magnified anywhere near as much. So things that might have knocked me for days now sort of might annoy me for minutes, you know. But the feeling that I feel of love, you know, for all the things in my life that I love, and these are things that I've always loved, like my daughter, you know, like my business, like my gym, like training, like competing, all of that stuff. I've always loved it. but it was a battle because my state was something that was opposite it. But now my state has shifted, and now my state is a much more positive one. And being in love, you know, means that I've fallen in love with my daughter, fallen in love with the gym, fallen in love with training, fallen in love with competing on a level I've never experienced before, and it's wonderful. But the interesting thing is with this, and the reason I want to talk about this, is I think that instinctively we will naturally go to a protective state because we want to defend ourselves. So we might not necessarily be in a state of in fear or in hate or in misery, but it's quite natural for us to be in an in protective state, you know, almost like in custody. Yeah, put the walls up, don't let the world in. Yeah, even from a point of view of just like a normal day-to-day life, because that's protection. You don't want to get hurt. You know, we put these barriers up as we get older. We see other people get hurt, we experience hurt, we put barriers up. And I think we don't even need to consciously do that, it just happens over time. And we get exposed to things and it can put us in a negative state, and we'll just stay in that negative state, and I think you will stay in that negative state forever. You know, the difference I think with being in love, you can love someone, but then if you want to be in that state of being in love, you have to actually allow it, because it requires vulnerability. And vulnerability is something that is like, whoa, lowering the walls down. And so you have to consciously flick the switch in your mind. You have to say, you know what, I'm going to allow myself. It's a surrender, okay? And with that comes vulnerability. And so you can't even say, well, is it worth it? Got to take the risk, haven't you? So that's question one for me. What's the difference between love and being in love? Yeah, the emotion versus the state. And yeah, I hope that makes sense. Okay, question 2 of the love edition was from Sophie Stevenson. She does like to ask questions, doesn't she? Why is there a shortage of single men in our gym? This is actually a really interesting question, because rather than answering it directly, it's like, it's a bit of a you are. This is a question of perspective, in my opinion. Okay, and you kind of like have to answer this question with a question to sort of get the ball rolling, which is like, how many do you need? You know, what is it that you're looking for? Now, if you feel that there's a shortage of something, you know, especially with this sort of thing, what this sort of hints at, what this sort of infers with a shortage, means that you need a quantity, you need a number. So if that's the case, that's because what you're doing is you're playing odds, you're gambling, yeah? So anytime you gamble, you need to keep on rolling the dice. You need statistics, okay? And anytime statistics are involved, you need numbers in your favour. So if there's a shortage, that means that you haven't got enough numbers to play the odds, right? The problem with gambling, of course, here comes Ellie, by the way. Elia, shush, I'm filming. What? What is it? No, I said no, not until I'm finished. Elia, I said no. Okay, go downstairs, Elia. She knew I was filming, so this is all a deliberate ploy. I did say I loved my daughter, didn't I? Yes, I did, didn't I? Anyway, so anytime you've got you know, a shortage, it's basically because you want to play numbers, right? And therefore, if you want to play numbers, then it's just basically gambling, statistics, luck. The problem with gambling is that over the course of short and long term, you lose, you know. And gambling is not a way to make your fortune. Gambling is not a way to be lucky, because, you know, that's why you need the numbers, because most of the numbers are going to be failures. The problem with this, of course, is that in the perspective of that, is that you see all of your prospective partners, boyfriends, girlfriends, lovers, whatever, as statistics, right? Well, it's not very meaningful, is it? And then you've got to ask yourself, what are you looking for? And then what do you view yourself as? Because if you view them as statistics, do you just view yourself as a statistic, you know? You know, because then you end up just lining yourself up with like those sort of crude sayings like any hole's a goal. What's the male version? Any dick is a tick. I don't know, right? Is that what you want? You know? Because in that question, why is there a shortage of single men? So it kind of implies that you want someone who's single to make them not single, but you're playing the game in such a way that it's pure statistics, therefore it's not meaningful. So you're not looking for a person or, you know, something that, you know, fits in with you. You just literally, anyone will do as long as they fit the odds. And that's just flat out gambling, and you're going to lose. Like, yeah, that's not how to, you know, it's like people that want to get rich playing the lottery. Whereas if they, instead of playing the lottery, they actually went out and, you know, did some work, and even better, they got a job they enjoyed doing, then they would earn some money and enjoy themselves while they're doing it. There's lots of parallels there with life, but you should take that approach, in my opinion. So, to answer that question, I would say the reason there's a shortage of single men in the gym is because you're asking the wrong damn question in the first place. And that means a shift in perspective, and you need to start asking some totally different questions. Yeah, view that as a cop-out or whatever. I don't think so. Anyway, I better go and make Elliot feel better. Okay, I've made Elliot happy now. All is right with the universe. So we can move on to question 3. Question 3 is from Nicholas Coe. And I think he was trying to make this a tricky one, because he's put, okay, in the spirit of Valentine's Day, let's see the softer side of Ali. What is the greatest love story ever told, and why? And you know what, this is a brilliant question. Like, I mean, really genuinely a brilliant question. I had a knee-jerk reaction as soon as I read the question. I was like, with an answer, like instantly. And then I went, what about more traditional answers? So I moved away from my knee-jerk reaction and then started thinking about stories that people might have heard of, you know. And you start weighing up stories like Romeo and Juliet. I've chatted with a couple of people about this. Someone said Adam and Eve. Someone said Shrek. Ah, amazing. Shrek. Totally, yeah, awesome. And then I realised, you know what? Whatever. My knee-jerk reaction was actually the right answer, I guess you would say. And that is mine. My story. Or your story, right? Because none of these stories, you know, the ones that get presented to us from other people, they never have the same impact, do they, as the one that you tell yourself. So, in terms of the greatest love story ever told, it's always going to be the story that you tell yourself. You know, if you think about, you know, someone that, you know, you're either in love with now, or someone that you've loved in the past, or, you know, anything. There's all those little details that make that story. And these details, when said to someone else, they might be like, you know what, that's really boring. That's really mundane. That doesn't matter. But to you, it makes the story. You know, it's like, when you think about the memory of when you first met them, or maybe when you first saw them, you know, was this something that started over a distance? Was it something you just met, you bumped into each other? Was there some complete piece of fluke luck that threw you together? What trials and tribulations have you been through, you know? What have you had to go through in order to, you know, be together? What have you had to go through to stay together? And you know, those stories that you tell yourself, they mean everything. And every time you hear anyone else's story, you're always going to go back to your own. You know, you think about how that makes you feel, and that's the greatest story. You know, some of the stuff that goes on in some of like the metaphors, you know, like where someone has to go and climb a mountain or slay a dragon, and then they win the heart of whoever it is, and they're happily forever after. It's like, my God, that's so simple, isn't it? That's not really like that difficult. If you said to me, yeah, all you've got to do is climb up that mountain and, you know, you'll live happily ever after in love, bliss, like, it's like 13 hours of a bit of discomfort and physical exertion. Is that all? Oh my God, that's easy. You compare that to the story that you tell yourself about, you know, winning someone's heart, or what you've had to endure, you know, in just the most general things. And another aspect of that as well is that, are you in a situation where you feel like the story is something that was in the past, you know, but potentially actually you could make the story ongoing, keep adding chapters, keep adding bits to the story, you know. Now that you're in this, if you are in this, you know, situation, can you keep the story going? Can you keep adding chapters, you know, meaningful bits? Yeah. Just, you know, there's a lot to these stories, you know, and like I said, they're only going to be important to you or to me when you just think about what is it that you love about them, you know, when you think about these things. And that's the greatest love story ever, the one you tell yourself, because, you know, it's the one that you feel, and everything else is just, you know, you're not going to feel it the same, even if it's an epic story, you know. I mean, is Romeo and Juliet, I mean, yeah, it's a story about love, but they probably should have had a different outcome, really. Never mind, eh? But yeah. So if you've forgotten your story, because this is the thing, I had a knee-jerk reaction. Straight away I thought, mine. And then I thought about these others, the classical answers, and then I was like, no, they pale in significance to what I feel about my own story. If you yourself, when you get at that question, what's the greatest love story ever told, and you don't have a knee-jerk reaction of mine, then fix that, you know? Think, when did the story end, you know? Is there a new story? Is there a new story that you haven't got the courage to start? Or is there a story that you're already in and you think it's over? You know, start the story up. Make it a story that if someone was to ask you, you immediately be like, yes, there you go, straight away. My story is greater than all these other stories. All these other ones that anyone will tell you, mine is the greatest. And yeah, it's cool. It's exciting. But only to me. And that's the beauty of it, you know, because it's yours, you know. But yeah, I'm waffling on now. Enjoy Valentine's Day.